few realize their opinion of the world is also a confession of their character. So when I'm out here like talking about the evil, the malevolence of statism, like I have good intentions, I think, in my heart, be like, hey guys, here's the truth of what's going on, like let's do something about it. But maybe there's some confession of character that's coming out of that too, like things I haven't dealt with, unresolved personal blemishes, I think as Preston Pish put it one time. But going into Bitcoin, this has all been like part of that Bitcoin journey. It's like you see yourself differently over time, and you're like hopefully spiraling upward.
That's the ego death.
Yeah.
Right. That is that is what's that is when it ends, because it forces you to come to these conclusions.
Hey everybody, welcome to the What is Money Show. I am thrilled to have you here joining me on my mission to help shine light on the corruption of money. Now, if this is your first time listening to the What is Money Show, I strongly recommend that you go back to episodes 1 through 9 first, which lays a lot of the groundwork for many of the concepts that we explore on the show. These first 9 episodes are my series with Michael Saylor, and thousands of people have told me that this is the best podcast series they've ever heard, hands down, and that it was instrumental to their understanding of money and Bitcoin. So if you're looking to start a deep dive into the nature of money, I don't think there's any place better that you can start other than episode 1 of this show. Now, a little bit about this show and how it makes money. The What is Money Show is 100% sponsor based. So all of our revenues are derived from direct sponsorships. And I strive to be very selective about the sponsors that I work with, specifically only using sponsors that I use personally, and also choosing sponsors that have values which are well aligned to the values expressed on this show, such as freedom, education, self-sovereignty, etc. So what I'm going to do now is a few ad reads right at the top of the show, and then I'll do a few more ad reads in the middle. And I hope you'll take the time to listen to them, as again, these are hand-selected sponsors, and I think you'll like what they have to offer.
Today's podcast is brought to you by In Wolf's Clothing. Wolf is the world's first startup accelerator program focused exclusively on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times per year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what is possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that help fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. So go to wolfnyc.com today to apply for the program or learn more. Again, that is wolfnyc.com. Jeff Booth, welcome back to the What is Money Show.
Thank you, Robert. Great to be here.
So great to have you again. Great to have you in person. We're in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for the Bitcoin Ski Summit, and today we're having a real fireside chat.
Yeah, awesome.
So for the audio listeners, if you hear any snap, crackle, or pop, that is the fire beside us. You probably don't need any introduction. You've been on this show, I'd say almost, if you count each episode of the series, we're at like 10 probably episodes together. You are a brilliant author, thinker, and most recently the GP of Ego Death Capital. What are you guys doing at Ego Death? Maybe we just start there before we jump into the big stuff.
We see an opportunity to build the ecosystem on Bitcoin, and the rails on top of Bitcoin that's just emerging, and really and build that faster and create tons of opportunity as Bitcoin accelerates around the world, and layer 2, layer 3 solutions that now, for a long time, you couldn't invest in Bitcoin and build applications on top. That's changed now, but the world still thinks it hasn't, and so that produces an asymmetric value creation that we think we're literally building into a new peer-to-peer decentralized internet, and with more profound implications than the internet itself, and we're early in that cycle. So I actually cannot believe we get to, and I also cannot believe that there aren't more VCs or more money chasing this opportunity, because when you see the opportunity, it's staggering.
Yeah, I guess it's a testament to how early we are, right?
Yeah.
So there's
So you're a Bitcoin focused VC?
That's right.
Right. And there's only less than a dozen of those, I think, in the world, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's super, super cool. Why Ego Death?
A lot of people think just because they've seen me on podcasts and everything else, it was me coming up with the name. It wasn't. It was my co-founders, Andy and Nico,
Okay.
who came up with the name. But it just describes, I think, what happens in Bitcoin. What happens to people who really understand that the protocol is bigger than them, and what this does for the transition, the phase transition that humanity's in from one system to another system. So I think it perfectly describes that. But again, it wasn't me. I wish I could. It wasn't me who came up with it.
Well, you exemplify it well, so that maybe that's why people think that. And we're just going to go straight into the deep end here, as is kind of the style when you and I talk. As we were just talking offline, the entire current socioeconomic system, right, that's premised on fiat, I think there's a good argument to be made that it's a giant lie, right? If I look at it from an economic standpoint, it seems to be premised on this fallacy that you can consume before you produce. And like, basic economics 101, right? Like you have to grow the plant or the tree before you can consume the berries, or grow the animal before you can consume it. Production always precedes consumption. Yet fiat currency tries to invert the whole thing, right? We're taking on more and more debt to consume before we produce, and then we're trying to print money to inflate away that debt or externalize the cost of it. And you were making the great point that even, like, it's one thing to identify that and say, okay, this is a lie, I don't think it works. But you made a good point that even those that have identified that as a lie can perhaps mistakenly empower that lie by, quote unquote, yelling at it, whatever that means, attacking it or trying to denigrate it, call it out, whatever. And I guess you're advocating that we should instead focus our energies and attention on building the alternative rather than trying to, and this, didn't Buckminster Fuller say something like this, that you have to allocate your energies toward building the new, not destroying the old, to progress, something like that. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it, because it's what struck me is, like, if that's true, if we're right about this, then we're like living through this humanity level self-deception, right? That the paradigm of the world is we can consume before we produce and just print money ad infinitum. And obviously that seems to be falling apart before our eyes.
Yeah, and let's attack that from a different way, but it's the same thing I explored in the book, right? But today we sit on, call it $400 trillion of global debt, and if you paid back $1 trillion, $1 per second, it'd take you 32,000 odd years to pay back $1 trillion. So the debt is already insolvent, right? And let's just stop there. And if anybody so there's no possible way that the debt can be repaid back.
That's mathematically.
Especially if technology is making things cheaper.
Right.
That would make the debt more expensive in real terms, right? So as things like the iPhone camera eradicates the need for Kodak film, things get cheaper. As technology drives things cheaper, that would technically make the debt more expensive and harder to pay back.
Right.
So it explodes in real terms.
Yeah.
So that entire system that we live in, and we measure not just social economic, we measure our lives in, our families, everything, because we try to gain enough money to be able to live for our families, and we measure other people by it and everything else. The entire thing is unrepayable. And we don't want to face that fact.
Right. Hard truth.
It's the hard truth. So we allow inside that system others to manipulate money at an ever increasing rate to be able to pretend we live in a safe system.
Right.
And so, and that has to get exponentially worse.
Yeah.
Just because we won't face that fact. And no government can face that fact. And actually no person can face that fact from that system. It cannot be solved from the system. No person. You could change faces on the system, but the system is unrepairable from the system.
Right.
And so, and just think through some of the implications. Implications are, you will vote for somebody who tells you that they can give you more money for nothing. Right. You will not, if somebody told you the truth that said your real wages are going to go up, but your fiat wages are going to come down next year because you're going to get a real gain, but it means your wages are going to come down because prices are going to fall faster than your wages fall. You wouldn't vote for that person. You'd think they were crazy,
right?
Because we're so used to empowering a system that says, we'll give you more raise, we'll give you more money to you, we'll give more money to you, we'll give more, and that money comes with a massive cost.
Yeah,
that is actually making the entire world more unstable.
Yeah,
as you drive that, and it's consolidating. It's transferring all of the productivity gains that should be flowing to society into the hands of very few. And so it ends in a very dystopian world.
Right.
If you lived in a world where because it ends in a dystopian world because you can't have individual rights and freedoms under a system that looks like that.
Right.
Because the system has to take them to be able to perpetrate that at an ever increasing rate.
Right.
So you don't live, so we believe we live in a democracy, we believe we have rule of law, but money is superordinate to rule of law. And so if money is broken, laws get changed to the favor of who accesses the money.
Yes.
And so that is the system we live in. And then what you were saying is, because of our insecurity in that system and the greater and greater insecurity in that system, we give it more power. We yell at that system. We divide from each other. We say it must be that person's fault. We want to ascribe not a system problem. We want to ascribe a person problem to that system. And we go in these small little groups that are all yelling and making the system stronger. We march on Wall Street. We say 2008, everyone marches on Wall Street. All the exact same people at the top of the socioeconomic ladder are still in power today. Right. And we forget. Right. And it goes on and it gets worse and worse. We have proxy wars, and same people creating them, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And we constantly lean in. And even for those that understand Bitcoin and have moved out of that system, they spend too much time out there yelling at that system. And empowering that system only makes it stronger. Right. Because most people don't know that we're in a system change from a system that is already insolvent, that only exists because of our willingness to allow others to manipulate money. And they get so mad at that with no fix, they yell at it. And so in fact, this ties into Ego Death and starting the venture company. I realized I control my time. I control all of it. I can either spend my time talking about what's bad in the world, or I can spend all of my time living in the world and building to the people building the future of the world that I want to see. Yeah. And my time matters. Yeah. And as does every single other person listening to this podcast, your time matters too. Right. And so you just ask yourself, if you're measuring your fiat world, trying to make more money in that world, and 99% of your time is there, and then you've just taken a little bit of Bitcoin and said, hopefully it goes up. Yeah. What you're actually doing is reinforcing the world that you do not want to see. You're spending your time, actually 99% of your time is reinforcing the world that's actually going to have staggering bad implications.
Through your attention and your energy and your work.
And it'll make you mad. Yeah. It'll make you, inside that world, it's going to drive you to the same thing that is chaotic inside that world. Right. It's going to drive you apart from other people. And inside this new world that's emerging, that's based on truth. It's if you spend more time, if you actually move your time over to this new system and learn what's happening and see the opportunities in it, you'll spend your time with people who are building on truth, hope, and abundance.
Right.
And your world will change as a matter of that. In fact, I think that's actually also what creates the dichotomy that the people say Bitcoin's almost like a religion.
Right.
Because it's so profound once you start to see the people in this. You want to spend more time with really great people who are building a really great future that matters for all of us. And that can feel, to somebody who doesn't know it,
It can look religious from the outside.
Look religious, or it can look like, what are these people? And if you're inside that world, it's also easy to not have empathy.
Sure.
For the people who've not seen it yet.
Yeah.
It's easier to it's easier to believe that you always knew it.
Right.
When 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 3 years ago, you had no idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You were exactly living in the other world, in the other reality, and you had no idea.
100%. It is, and so many things coming up from here. Someone said this to me earlier on this trip, like, the truth will set you free, but first it has to piss you off. And I felt like that's kind of been the experience of getting into Bitcoin. Like, which it's been a little strange because I read The Creature from Jekyll Island before Bitcoin, so I got really pissed off at that point.
Yeah.
I saw central banking through the lens of the author, but it's a great book on central banking, and I was very pissed off. But there was no answer. There was nothing to do about it at that time. And then fast forward, like, getting into Bitcoin, it is inspiring changes in people's lives, right? Like, you can almost tell if someone's really into Bitcoin or not just by kind of how they carry themselves. And so in that way, I guess it is religious in a way. Like, I could see how an outside observer would perceive us as being part of a cult, because we talk about this thing like it solves all the problems. You just don't understand it yet. You haven't seen the light. We all kind of, we jive well. I mean,
so when you say it like that, then it sounds like a cult. Or when you say have fun staying poor, tune out, then it does. And because people miss the depth of it actually does solve those problems.
Right.
But they don't know how, they can't connect to how it solves the problem.
Yes.
And so the how it does takes a long time to understand.
Right.
All of the wiring, essentially, if you just said the emergent complex nature of behavior in society, all of society, was based on theft or inflation, which is theft, and you agreed, we had a societal bond that said it's okay, right, to have theft at the base layer of all money.
Not only is it okay, it's required.
It's required.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody in the world said, okay, that's required. Then the emergent nature, complex nature of society would just be a mere reflection of that theft.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself, who would win and who would lose as a result of that? And if you were better at it, win more. Yeah. And as hard as that is to say, right?
Yeah.
Because most people's time is 99% or 100% inside this world. It's hard. You can see the mirror reflection of society.
Yes.
Just mirroring that back, and everybody yelling at different images of that reflection back at them. And then conversely, on Bitcoin, what would the mirror image of society look like? All it is
built on work.
It's an open, decentralized ledger that nobody can stop, right?
Yeah.
Based on proof and work. So it's just truth.
It makes theft unprofitable.
And so when you remove that manipulation or theft from a system, you have to consequently ask, what would the emergent complex behavior of society look like based on truth?
Yeah.
And that's a profound implication, because it changes everything.
Yeah.
It literally changes everything, because it changes the incentives, and it changes and it allows the productivity gains from society that we are all part of.
Yeah.
To flow to everybody instead of be concentrated in few.
Right.
It profoundly changes everything.
So if we, ask you this. Did we get ourselves into this mess because it seems like, I think it was the author Gary North where I originally heard this, but humans like to try and get something for nothing. Now this can be good or bad, right? It can be moral or immoral. Good would be the entrepreneurial path, right? I've got a problem. I want to solve it in a more efficient way. And then once I figure that out, that tool or that service, I can sell that to other people and let them solve it in a more efficient way. So it's kind of like being cleverly lazy almost. Like obviously you're working to solve the problem, but you're doing it to scratch your own itch, so to speak. So you're getting something for nothing, right? You're getting productivity gains. You know, you can dig a lot more holes per hour with a shovel than you can your hands, something like that. The other path though is getting something for nothing just by taking. So is it this universal proclivity for humans to seek something for nothing that got us into this weird mess where we're like, we thought we could print money to solve economic crises, like, oh, there's a problem, let's just print money, it doesn't require a lot of work. And then over time that becomes institutionalized. And now I think you see it in culture, right? Like people, they're like money and wealth is demonized because they have a zero-sum mentality about it. Like for me to get money, I have to take money from someone, but that's not how economics works, right?
Yeah.
If you collaborate and you coordinate your actions, you actually produce more wealth per person.
Yeah.
It's positive sum, not zero sum. So I'm just, is that kind of the cardinal economic sin that got us into this mess?
I don't think so. I think what I think it is our ability to delude ourselves in the name of helping others. I think so if you said people on top of this system today could easily tell themselves a lie saying, if we don't do this, people are going to starve. We have to do it. So I'm righteous to be able to do this, and I'm the one that should be able to help. I think it's our collective ability to delude ourselves.
So you think even all the way to the top is it's like the pinnacle of self-deception then, because these are people
Pinnacle of self-deception.
hurting the most people.
Even if you knew the root cause of the problem, and there's no way to solve it from your existing paradigm, and all of your wealth and power and influence comes from that paradigm, then you would more easily delude yourself to say, I have to be the one who solves this.
Wow.
It just reinforces because people want to matter to other people. Ultimately. So I think it's that. But if you kind of play this forward throughout time and why Bitcoin has changes this, you probably talked about this many times, probably with me too, but if you actually had something that, because money is superordinate to laws, right? But we put in laws in place, more Magna Carta, Constitution, Bill of Rights, different things, laws in place to essentially protect us, our individuals, from the state, right?
Yeah.
And by doing that, the states that did that had more productivity, right? And because now people could act, right? Property rights, they could act and they could create more wealth that would flow to society. And typically authoritarian governments that collected it all and didn't allow that suffered.
Yes.
Right. So when you had rule of law and rights to individuals, you had faster growth economies. But over time, because money is superordinate to that process, people with money change the laws.
Right.
And you lose over time the same thing that protected those people, because the only way that you can fight the law is have enough money to lobby everything else. So those laws get whittled away over time.
Right.
And the laws don't protect the people at the bottom.
Right.
The laws protect the people at the top.
Of course.
Right. And so what that says, and if it didn't look like that, then the areas with most broken money would have the strongest laws protecting people.
Right.
So, but you can see
the opposites is true.
In the world, you can see that. So now you say in the US, or where are we on that axis of broken money? And we know it has to be more and more broken over time. And that means we know laws have to be eroded and we have to remove individual rights and freedoms over time. It has to get worse out of that system. What would that look like? Now, if you go back in time all of these cycles that have changed, we had to do that. And then what it turned out is, if you could control money, if you could control the gold, if you could control money, if you could centralize money through gold or anything else, if you could control money, then you had a win at society's loss. Right? And it was such a power that you went to war to control money. Right. You change money, and then when you reset it, we promise we won't abuse money again. Right. And it just repeats over time.
Yes.
And so, and then you add to that, winners write the history books. So if what we're saying is true, then all of the books you and I read, and all of the history throughout time on all of these different standards around money, must be fundamentally carry errors. Right. Because they were designed with that error code in them, and winners write the history books. Right. Wow. So we must be looking through that error of what happened here, what we didn't see, because winners write the history books. What we didn't see in that whole thing. And Bitcoin removing through decentralization and trust, so you don't need the institution. And putting it in our hands. It's the first time in history that actually can change the future.
It's brilliant. It's a unalterable history that can't be rewritten by the political winners.
Through proof of work and the longest chain. You have a forward from 2009 that unalterable. That it gets stronger and stronger and more decentralized and more secure over time. And the rails of future civilization will rely on something that's based on truth.
Wow.
Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, iCoin Technology. iCoin has just released a sleek new hardware wallet. Looks like a mini iPhone, a little touch screen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, no GPS. It's a strictly physically cold hardware wallet. Like I said, it's got a high-res 3-inch touchscreen. It's got a camera for air gapping the wallet. It's got optional Bluetooth compatibility. And it's really a brand new UI, UX experience for a hardware wallet, making it very accessible, easy to use, not intimidating. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like iCoin Wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. Go to iCointechnology.com today and use promo code Bitcoin23 for 30% off of this new sleek hardware wallet. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Ledn. Ledn lets you do more with your digital assets. For instance, Ledn offers a B2X loan product that lets you leverage your existing Bitcoin to buy even more Bitcoin. Or you can also get traditional Bitcoin collateralized US dollar loans through Ledn as well. Ledn also offers both Bitcoin and USDC denominated savings accounts, letting you generate yield on your digital assets. Recently, Ledn has launched a Bitcoin mortgage product as well that lets you use Bitcoin to buy a home or finance one that you already own. So go to ledn.io, that's LEDN.io today to sign up.
It's amazing. You know, I hear what you're saying. There are other people that have shared their perspectives that I think what you're saying is that we have a tendency to delude ourselves that our actions are for the greater good, whatever it is. And this could be at any level, right?
Yeah.
Even at the level of central bank shareholder or governor, they think they need to print money to help the world. And maybe they actually believe that in their heart of hearts. Do you think there's any room, though, for, I mean, other people have strong views the other way, thinking that, no, there's a cohort of people in the world that intergenerationally want to control other people. Like, that's more of the globalist, elitist view. And I know, and I have to really thank you actually for when you, in our series, you talked about the us versus them. And it's just not a useful dichotomy because ultimately we are just one species sharing one planet. Like, everything affects everything else. You can't say good guys, bad guys.
We're all connected.
So is there any room in that, in your view there, for that intergenerational sociopathy or whatever that is?
So of course, and I haven't said this on a lot of podcasts because somehow some people may think, in my view of the world, that I'm pretending that doesn't exist. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's a strategy to make that irrelevant. Because they have no power over me. Zero. If I don't believe and I don't move. And if I give them power over me by saying it's them,
right,
then that much power, if you're talking about those people, and there are terrible people in this world that manipulate others, terrible people, sociopaths, and there always has been. It's a tiny fraction of the world, but yes, maybe many of them are in that. But if those people control the media waves, let's just say they control the information, they control it through WEF, they control, and all of and most of the people even going to the conferences were delusional themselves, and they were helping through that delusion. And I talked about them as a conspiracy theory. Most people in the world would tune me out.
Or be alienated. Right. Yeah.
So I would give them more power.
Right.
And so
this is a conscious strategy for allocating your attention.
A conscious strategy for allocating my attention.
Right. Okay.
And because they can't do anything about this protocol. If there's there's nothing they can do about this protocol. And the later that they're on,
the better.
The better.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So back to that, the truth will set you free, but first it has to piss you off. My own journey. I found myself with a lot of vitriol toward statism, right? Like the most evil enterprise in the world. I don't try to single out any individuals, kind of like you. I try to think a little bit deeper. Like, as I said in the talk earlier, I think humans are kind of like, their characters are the emergent properties of the incentive structures they're in. So people are going to do whatever is profitable to them, whether that's violence or whether that's like charity work, right? Whatever, maybe not charity work, but something productive. And so I think Bitcoin, like the big change is that we're changing out the incentive landscape, and that's what gets more goodness, more productivity in the world, more peace. But now, like hearing you say this, I'm like, oh, well, I think maybe I've erred in my ways, that I've pointed negative attention at the state. I'm yelling at the state or statism. Is that an absolute? Is that something you think people should just like not even call out? Because it's, I mean, I guess I see some benefit in it, that some people don't understand the problem in the world. So you're like helping them clarify, like this is the problem and here's what fixes it.
So I guess what I would say is, I hold no domain over what somebody else should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
They should do whatever they should think is right. I hold domain over what I do.
Right. Okay.
And my mirror reflection of my reality is really great. Right? Friends, family, love, connection, business. It's just really great. Like I almost feel bad saying how great, because it just is such a. And so I choose what I want to do, and then I measure back on what I'm doing. Is it producing the return in my life that I want? Period.
Gotcha.
If somebody else wants to choose a different return, and it's giving them exactly what they want, they should do it.
Right. Yeah.
But what ends up happening? What ends up happening if I tie further that delusional aspect? People actually don't typically see what's blocking them from success.
Right.
And they're feeding back into a machine, and they think that they think they're having success, and they're moving further and further away from the very success that they want.
Right. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe this metamorphosis is still taking place in myself, but I felt basically angry after reading The Creature from Jekyll Island. And then this work in Bitcoin has been kind of an outlet for that anger. It's like, help people see the problem so we can resolve it. But there does come a point where maybe it crosses a threshold of utility, that it's not as useful as it once was, if it ever was, perhaps.
And anger is a prerequisite. If you're at a lower level of consciousness, if you're at apathy, right, then you just don't care.
Right.
If you're at resolution to then anger is a level of consciousness that actually can inspire if you don't just stay there.
Right.
can inspire you to move to a higher level of consciousness.
Yes. Right.
Right. But if you're below that level, if you're
in apathy,
in your apathy, you won't do what you did. Read, learn. What does this look? Wait, I could create a podcast to teach others. I can create a whole bunch of and move to a higher level.
Yes.
And on the way of you moving to a higher level of understanding,
you move past anger.
Move past anger.
Right. Okay.
Move into love. Move into acceptance. Move into a whole bunch of other things. That now you start to see the world, and that view of your world, which was this exact same world, right?
Yeah.
Just a different viewpoint from your level to someone else's level.
Yeah.
Is actually your growth.
Right.
And in that number of people you could touch as a result of that, that growth.
No, it's very encouraging to hear that, actually. I've seen, like, recently Alex Fetsky, who we both know, he's kind of going through something too. He's like, hey, look, I just have seen how angry I've been over the past few years, and now I'm trying to grow out of it or grow beyond it. And I do want to work towards love. Like this quote, I think I shared it with you earlier, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm going to paraphrase this. I don't even know who said it. Someone can fact check me, but this quote, that few realize their opinion of the world is also a confession of their character.
Yeah.
So when I'm out here, like, talking about the evil, the malevolence of statism, like, I have good intentions, I think, in my heart. Be like, hey guys, here's the truth of what's going on. Like, let's do something about it. But maybe there's some confession of character that's coming out of that too, like things I haven't dealt with. Unresolved personal blemishes, I think, as Preston Fish put it one time.
Yeah.
But going into Bitcoin, this has all been like part of that Bitcoin journey. It's like you see yourself differently over time, and you're like, hopefully spiraling upward.
That's the ego death.
Yeah.
Right. That is what's that is when it ends, because it forces you to come to these conclusions. By the way, seeing it in myself, I've said this on numerous podcasts, probably yours too. So sorry for anybody that has to hear this again. But it's been so profound in me that I am hoping other people see it. But when I see people in the world, everyone I see, I literally see them walking around with a sign on their forehead. The sign on their forehead that everyone else can read, what's stopping them from success, right? And because we can easily see what's stopping, like in a 2-minute conversation, we can see what's stopping somebody else from success. They don't see the world like you see the world, and they're reinforcing that worldview, but they believe it, and it's true for them. And we can, and I can pick up. I've just become really attuned at picking that up everywhere, because I've been attuned to picking it up in myself.
Right.
And because and I had to ask myself, and I used this before, but it's not just one archetype, but just let's say the victim. Right? The victim walks around wanting love, attention, or belonging. Right. And what do? They try to get belonging by being a victim. And the first time it works, and everybody says you matter. And that drug, that dopamine rush to I matter,
the attention,
that I make a difference, they use the tool to try to create it. And that then more and more people move away. And then they're left isolated. They're pushing the very thing that was all around them everywhere. Love was all around them all the time. And they're pushing it away. And then they typically double down, because they really believe in their version it's true, because everybody's moving away and they don't have that belonging anymore. And they double down and try to create more drama to try to bring people back.
Right.
And as they do that cycle pushes people further and further away.
Right.
And they are living in a manifestation of their reality that they created 100%.
Wow.
And so if you can see that in other people, I had to, but they can't, and they really can't. And worse, then most people, all of their friends that we're talking, they talk behind their back. And they don't ever tell them, right? And they spend all of their time wasting their time talking about other people, right? And I got to thinking, wait, if that's happening everywhere, and I can see these signs, different signs on different people, and they're doing this, and they're pushing away the very thing that they want, then I must be too.
Right.
What's on my sign that nobody will tell me? Right. And what would be my way to be able to constantly hold it in focus so I can fix it instead of myself. And that is, when I saw that, I realized that some of the things I was doing were about same thing.
Right.
Ego, attention, needing to matter, and everything else. And I realized if I do those less, if I don't care about those things or try to work those out, that abundance is just natural. It's going
to flow to you.
Exactly.
That's a great point, because it's not like, I mean, ego death might be too strong of a term, because it's always with you, right? Like the saber-toothed tiger jumps through the window, we're probably going to run because
I think that's different. I think that's different. That fighter.
Okay, so you disentangle then, like self-preservation from ego.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
To me, ego is the self needing to matter. When you look at a photo of you and your friends, you'll focus on yourself first.
A social human setting.
Exactly. Do I matter? And so our attention is on us inside our mind. All these people all around us all the time that are all inside their own mind. We're inside our own mind, and we think about ourselves 99% of the time, telling ourselves these stories, telling us how do we show up, how do we gain more attention, did what I say on this podcast matter, did those people, am I getting more views? And it's so, and we lose ourselves in that. That we think we're doing it, and as more people, let's use anger for an example. If I created a little community where I yelled at those very same people we just talked about, and a whole bunch of people would come into that community and tell me I was right, and it would feel like love, it would feel like belonging. If I never had that community before, and it would feel, and I would want to do more and more with it, and from doing that, I might, not necessarily, but I might push the things away that I want most. There are many people, potentially even in Bitcoin, could push away many of their other friends by making Bitcoin, because it's such a priority in their life, they can't allow somebody else to see it live. So now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. Everybody has their own choice, but I'm still very good friends with a lot of friends of mine that I've been friends with since I was 5 that still don't understand Bitcoin. It doesn't make them bad people. I just have a different view. I want them to understand.
So the more you de-emphasize the focus on your own egoic self, the richer or more viewpoints or perspectives you're getting on yourself from authentic relations with others, like seeing yourself through the eyes of others, and gives you a higher resolution depiction of yourself in the world.
And if you do a really simple hack is this, I'll say this, virtually everyone listening to your podcast will find it almost impossible to do. And if you do it, will increase your time and energy by a factor of 100. Never talk about anyone behind their back unless you're saying great things. Never. Because you choose everybody in your relationships. You choose everyone. So if you're going to spend time with them and you can't say the thing to them and no one else, don't spend time with them.
Okay, that's good, because me and my buddies like to talk smack to each other. So as long as I can say it to their face, it's okay.
but that's it. And you can and you say and the same thing. But all of that wasted energy. Because if it's true that we can't see you with the sign on our forehead, then our friends should turn around our sign.
That's what friendship should be defined by.
That's what friendship should be defined with. And when you do that, and you have rich friendships, when your friends are your family and family are your friends, and vice versa, it's these deeper connections that take you to a higher level too.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's beautiful. It reminds me of, Peterson talks about outsourcing your sanity to those around you. It's like you have blind spots, so you need people to check you when you're veering off the path. I feel compelled to ask you about this. So we've been touching on anger on and off, and one of perhaps the guiding light in my life that has been most useful is, and happened through Bitcoin actually, is trying to discipline myself in the ways of Christ. And I don't even exactly know what that means yet. I'm just trying to emulate. I'm just trying to read a lot about Christ and his life, and I'm trying to emulate how he acted in the world. And it's been good for me in a lot of ways. There's one time in the Bible where Christ uses anger. Now, I don't know if anger is the right word, but he uses coercion, he uses force. And that's when he drove the money changers out of the temple. And one of the pastors that I saw described righteous anger as that which is directed at resolution. So I know anger is something you clearly don't want, but as you said earlier, it is one step above apathy. So I guess it's good relatively in that sense. Is there any righteous anger that you think is necessary for resolving things in the world?
For me, no. But I do recognize its power over others. Because if you can harness that in a whole bunch of people, you can overthrow a different group of people. Right. So you can use that, and a lot of people in the world would be stuck in that, and you could use that as influence.
I feel like maybe it's been more of an energizer to writing, or it's like you see something in the world you're frustrated with, and I'm a frustratable person, so maybe this might be a character flaw too, I don't know, but I get frustrated by something and I'm like, I want to move towards that and help try to resolve it somehow.
Oh, so for me,
I guess that is influence over people though, because when you're trying to write, you're trying to... Yeah.
And again, why are you trying to, what is the real reason you're trying to write? What is not the reason you're saying you're trying to write?
I mean, I hope it's to get closer to truth.
But probably what it really is at the bottom of that, and that's not a bad thing, is I want to matter. I want to matter for all these other people who say, you changed my life. Right?
Love and belonging.
Yeah, love and belonging.
Yeah.
At the highest order, that's why you do it.
Right. That's why we do everything.
That's why you do everything.
Yeah.
That is superordinate to all the other things, and you're doing it to serve that. And if a whole bunch of people reinforce you for doing it, if everyone said, you suck at this, you're terrible, you're over and over, that was what it was your response, and you weren't making a difference, you wouldn't write. And because people say you make a difference, and you make it a profound difference in people's lives, you write more. And now the question to you is, do I do it just for that? And is it moving me away from other things I want? Because you could easily delude yourself and say, I'm going to do it all the time, and I'm going to take all that time away from my family.
Right.
And I'm doing it for my family.
Right. The word
You're not actually,
exactly.
When you're actually not doing it for your family, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for that love and belonging. And then when your wife would get mad at you for doing that, she would not be showing you love and belong,
right?
Because she would move further away.
Gotcha.
And that's why, I mean, we get trapped in these, and we delude ourselves that I'm doing it for a bigger reason because our self-deception, and we're doing it to feed our ego.
Where does fear fit into this? Because if we do everything for love and belonging, I'm confused because people can also act out of fear. I think Fiat is often acting out of fear, right? You're either you're imposing Fiat on someone, do this or else I'll hurt you, because you're scared if they don't do the thing that you're not going to get the thing you want. And then people that comply with Fiat do it out of fear, right? Like,
yeah, it is. So there's a lot of people that don't leave their job,
right?
Because you could say fear, but what is it underneath that fear? They don't matter to the family. They didn't deliver a good life or vacation or X to Y to their family. If you actually realize that how much you could actually do, what your life could look like. For me, if I just lived in a tent with people I loved or around me, and I was camping all the time, and I had my guitar, and I actually don't need very much. I'm not saying I choose to do that, but I don't actually need very much to have everything I already have it. And that gratitude every day for all the things I have, you end up with more of the things that it just continues on. So inside that fear often is the same thing, right?
Is it love and
Is
belonging?
the same reason. And why do you write, right?
Right.
It's inside that, and it's holding, and people call it fear, but inside that, it's probably something deeper.
Is there an opposite to love then? I always thought of fear as kind of an opposite to love.
Hate. But I really believe, and people could push back on this, but when I see all of the kind of incentives around the world at the highest level of incentive, when before we were on this podcast, we were talking about 2 ways up the mountain, right? That spiritual journey up top the mountain, or if you said quantum physics up the mountain and everything else, and at the top of the mountain, it's totally unified, right? I think actually at the base of all religions is that unification too. It's such a high level understanding of that, but it could easily be ascribed to a person, right?
Right.
Because when people show up like that in your life, they make you feel so good. It's just this energy. It's this connection of energy, and it's not about them, right? It's and so if you had that connection of energy with and somebody made it feel really good, it would be easy to ascribe that connection of energy to them,
right?
Instead of or their teaching of your interpretation of their teaching, rather than what it actually was. It was in all of us,
right? Yeah, this reminds me of, I can't remember who said this, but society starts to fall apart when we begin confusing the principle of sovereignty with the current sovereign. Right. It's like the king or whoever the leader is meant to embody that principle.
Yep.
But when you start mistaking that embodiment for like, that's the guy that needs to run everything forever.
Bingo.
That's totalitarianism.
That's a really great way to.
Wow.
Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is a Bitcoin-enabled alternative to legacy health insurance. Now let's face it, legacy health insurance is an absolute scam. Nobody can explain this better than the legendary comedian Chris Rock.
Insurance. You got to have some insurance. You got to. That's an insurance. They shouldn't even call it insurance. They should just call it in case shit. Like, I give a company some money in case shit happens. Now, if shit don't happen, shouldn't I get my money back?
So with CrowdHealth, instead of just paying premiums that you'll never see again, you can hold part of this pool of savings in dollars and in Bitcoin through CrowdHealth. And when you have a health event, you can draw against this pool of communal savings. So go to joincrowdhealth.com/breedlove to learn more or sign up. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Wasabi Wallet. Wasabi lets you use Bitcoin privately while still maintaining full control over your money. Specifically, Wasabi Wallet is an open source, non-custodial wallet with privacy built in by default. By using Wasabi, you're effectively putting the private back in private property. Wasabi Wallet is an easy-to-use privacy wallet that can support any amount of Bitcoin transactions. So go to wasabiwallet.io today to download this state-of-the-art wallet software. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Bitcoin Conference 2023. This 3-day event will be held May 18th through 20th in Miami Beach. This is going to be the biggest event of the year, as it always is. And the past 2 years in Miami have simply been amazing. Day 1's Industry Day. Days 2 and 3 are going to be open to general admission. And I'd say this is a great place to go and network with Bitcoiners or even look for a job. Just a really all-around great experience. There's a fantastic speaker lineup, including Michael Saylor, Zoltan Pozar, Lynn Alden, Alex Gladstein, many others. And last year, we did a 10 million sats giveaway for this event, and we're going to do it again this year. So to get discounted tickets and enter for a chance to win 10 million sats, go to b.tc/conference and use code BREEDLOVE. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, LMNT. LMNT is a delicious electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. LMNT contains the ideal electrolyte ratio. It's got 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. LMNT has no junk. It's got no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS at all. LMNT is perfectly suited for people that are on a keto, low carb, or paleo diet. And as someone that eats a very heavy meat diet and does a lot of intermittent fasting, I simply love this stuff. So go to drinklmnt.com/breedlove. That's DRINKLMNT.com/breedlove. And make sure to get a free sample pack with your first purchase. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes it simple to buy and secure your Bitcoin without wondering whether you're doing it right. Specifically, Casa provides a multi-key custody solution, which is by far the most secure way to custody your Bitcoin. Now, when I talk about Bitcoin being theft-proof money or inviolable private property, a multi-key custody model is exactly what I am talking about. Using multiple keys lets you maintain full control of your Bitcoin while also giving you redundancy in case you lose one of the keys. It's also the best way to secure your Bitcoin for inheritance planning purposes. So go to keys.casa, that's C-A-S-A, today to sign up and use discount code BREEDLOVE.
So love. We got to go to love then, because that's the reason we're acting, right? It's the motivator of all action, love and belonging. So we say the word love in English and it's just lumped all together. But I learned this through John Vervaeke, actually, who's been on the show. The ancient Greeks had many words for love. I know 3 of them. I think they have several more, but one was eros, where we get words like erotic. Yeah. It's consumptive love. It's not just sexual in nature. It could also be consumptive, like I love the potato chips or whatever the thing is. So you want to consume the thing that you have eros for. Another form of love is philia, which is reciprocal engagement. So friendship and romantic partnership, right? I want to get to know you more deeply such that you can know me more deeply, and then I can know you more. And like it's this ongoing reciprocal opening type of love. You don't want to eat your friends typically. You want to get to know them more deeply and bond with them. And then the third one, which is captured largely in the Christian ethos, which is agape, right? And that is the total selfless love that a parent has for their child. Like when you first bring home the child from the hospital, the infant, there's not even philia, there's not even reciprocity, right? They're basically an inert lump, sleeping and
crying.
Crying. And yet the love you feel towards that person is overwhelming. Probably the strongest feeling I think humans can have. When you say action is motivated by love and belonging, I just want to decompose the word love a little bit. Like, what does it mean to you? How do you, when you say that, which version of love are you invoking?
For me, I feel like it's more of a spiritual connection to everything. And so it takes some of those things, but maybe it's hard to describe what that looks like, because depending on what your view of, right, let's say you were a victim, right? What I'm saying here, you wouldn't be able to see it on the same. It wouldn't mean the same to you. If you were angry, right? You would probably reinforce what you thought you meant, or what I meant from your picture versus my picture. It's hard to even describe kind of that picture, but what I'd just say is that energy connection with people, that when I literally I want the best for them. How it shows up in our venture fund, and I don't want to make this about the venture fund, but how it shows up in venture fund is, I would never invest in a company I didn't love the founder. I might be wrong. I might make a mistake. I might make a mistake on the business. I might make anything else. But even if the business had really great opportunity and I didn't have that connection, that I could have that relationship, I wouldn't invest because I need to feel like I could say anything and they could say anything to me to get to a connection where I can actually help instead of, because the only reason I would do it is to try to advance it, not for money.
Right.
Because when you try to advance it for your gain of money, you typically create a tension between an entrepreneur and yourself, that you're doing it for a different reason. If you're actually aligned, now the entrepreneur can actually hear the same things that you might have made a mistake on in your life 20 years ago, and you'd made the same. They can hear it because it's from here, right?
Wow.
And when it's from there, you can, just like what you say with your friends, that you'll tell them the truth.
Yeah.
When it's from there, you can make incredible change,
Right.
and it magnifies, and you collect more and more people around you,
Right.
that are all like that. Here's a different. I saw this through a YPO event one time, and I thought this describes in a different way some of the stuff that I see the world in first. So a pyramid, right, of how do you get to trust, or how do you get to that level in a relationship? And typically what you have to do is show vulnerability. Most people, they're up here, all of these relationships are about an inch deep, a mile wide, and they don't have depth of relationships. How you doing? Killing it. And it's not like you're wanting to walk by everybody on the street and tell them your deepest pain.
Sure.
But for the people in your life that you want to actually develop, you need to show vulnerability.
Yeah.
And they have a choice every time you show vulnerability. Somebody has to go first.
Yeah. Right.
They have a choice to go up a level and say, I'm out, or down a level and meet you.
Yeah.
And as you go down to that level, these people at the bottom of the pyramid that you'd say, and that's typically for some people, it might be 1, it might be 5 relationships, that even if 20 years could go by and those people are rock solid, you know who they are forever. And what I superimposed on that is kind of how society works. And you'll go through that relationship in school, or a war, in your military unit, or some other unit or a business that's fighting it out. And you saw the people who stuck, and then they stuck forever. And you saw the people that were expelled from that, and you just know. And I thought, could you just do that all the time? Could you create a world where it looked like that all the time and invert the pyramid by just going first?
Always going first.
And then listening to who meets you and who meets you. And so what I find in my life, and what's given tremendous value, is the number of people from me, you're one of them, who's here, right? that I really care about you. And if I think about some of the other Bitcoiners in the community, I really care because we're here. And that builds a ton of value, because it's just an immense group of people that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, that are just really brilliant people.
You're gonna make me cry, Jeff. Yeah, man. The feeling. I guess first of all, it seems like you're prioritizing authentic human engagement above any worldly material gain in your business, in your life, etc. But that somehow is really related closely to truth too, right? Because
I could care less about money, and it feels like I have an abundance of it because I could care less about it.
Right. Yeah. That which you can do without, you own. So I think Knut told me that. But it's that authentic human engagement is you're able to gain closer proximity to truth through those relationships, right? Because you have people that will call you on your own bullshit and you'll do it for them. And together you can accomplish more than you could alone, something like that. So love and truth seem really closely. Yeah. And maybe that's why.
And I could easily delude myself too.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly on the awareness, and these people around me, I ask them to hold me, that I don't let it go to my head. I'm not bigger, let's say in Bitcoin, I'm one voice in this, and when people say we are all Satoshi, that's how I think.
Yes.
I do not think I am any better, any worse, anything else than anybody in this ecosystem.
One node in the network.
One node in the network.
Yeah.
Just one node in the network that brings this abundance, truth to society.
Yeah.
And so I'm very happy to be a node.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be able to be a node with all of those other people. And I love that's the world that's being created.
I love it too. I guess in the sense of philia, like I want to keep it, like it, Bitcoin draws you into this engagement with the community and the people. Like the quality of Bitcoiners on like multiple dimensions is what makes me so, I'm already unbelievably bullish on Bitcoin, doing my own self-study, which is kind of how this whole thing started. But now getting integrated into the community, you're like, oh wait, these are other people that have approached it through their own perspective. They're brilliant in their own way, all different walks of life, all converging on the same conclusion.
All getting stronger, more decentralized, more people.
Yes.
Better data, all truthful. That's why this is literally unstoppable. It's unstoppable because it's us.
Right.
It is the best in us described into a network that brings the best to all of us.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay. And I feel that tremendously at these Bitcoin live events, like this event, like it's the most enjoyable cultural experience I've ever had in my life, being a Bitcoiner.
Yep.
And maybe it's just for us nerds that we're a little bit, I'm naturally introverted. I have good friends pre-Bitcoin, they're still good friends, etc. But there's something about this cultural experience that's just effortless to me. And I really appreciate that. What is it about Bitcoin Twitter that's so opposite? It's like
I don't think it is.
We go, well, like if you're outside looking in, if you've never been to a Bitcoin event and you look at Bitcoin Twitter, you're like, oh my God, these people like really go at each other and everyone else hard. But then you come to a Bitcoin event, everyone's like, it's a love fest. So what's going on?
So for me, my Bitcoin Twitter doesn't look like that. And people have always asked, how do you stay above that noise? It's because when it comes at me, I don't feed it.
Right, just like you said earlier.
Right? Because what somebody says about me is their interpretation about me, right? Nothing can hurt me. So it's really simple. It's either right, and I need to fix me, right? Or it's some crazy person that's trying to gain attention from me, right? That if I'm feeding it, it's my ego saying you hurt me,
right? Okay.
It's me saying, no, here's who I am. I'm better than everybody else. And I need to reach back and I need to tell you why I'm better. And by doing so, I explode it because it was all about me. I just let it okay. And it just all just goes away.
This is so Bruce Lee of you. Just like you're like water, like it just passes through you.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, I have to ask you about this. This is, I don't even know if I can articulate this well, but I told you I read the book Flow, which I think you said you've read as well.
I read it a long time ago, but yeah.
This is a book about the nature of the flow state, which is often reported as the optimal human experience. Optimal in two senses, like optimal that not only is it one of the most enjoyable experiences people report having in a way that's distinct from pleasure, because people do weird things to get into flow that aren't necessarily pleasurable, like rock climbing and stuff like that. Also optimal in the sense that it's one of the best performances they've ever given. Like when you're in flow, like a lot of elite athletes, almost all elite athletes that are giving gold medal performances, like they'll talk about their experience after the fact, like it was just flow, or I was just effortlessly doing the thing. In that book, there's one section, I think in the last chapter, that talks about the meaning of meaning. And I've been really into like decomposing words lately, like we did with love earlier, just to try and look through what we mean when we say these things. Obviously the meaning of meaning is a bit of a meta thing, so it's a little confusing, but the book lays out three definitions. One would be like the significance or importance of a thing. When we invoke the sentence, what is the meaning of life? We kind of mean that first sense of meaning. The second one is intention related. So how someone expresses their intentions through action. You know, you might say like, he means well, or I didn't mean to do that. You know, like you're your attention.
And what you're really saying in that one specifically, we'll go to the others too, but what you're saying is, I trust someone and I'm going to forgive them for the thing because they must not mean that. That's what
Right.
That's what you're saying. And you wouldn't give that same level to somebody you didn't know. You
Right.
wouldn't treat the action, what they did, as the intention.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we measure ourselves by our actions, by our intentions.
Yes.
And we measure everyone else in the
By
world
their
by
actions. But we all err.
But our intent, but because we can forgive ourselves, we didn't mean that.
Right.
We did, and so
It's
that's
almost
what I mean.
the definition of error is when intention and action are divorced. Right?
Exactly. We're delusional in that. Sorry, you keep going, and then we'll.
Okay, just the third one is a meaning of meaning is like orderly information, right? So this could be like the definition of a word. What does that word mean? Or if you get a tracking number on your package, if one character is off in the tracking number, it has no meaning.
Claude Shannon information theory.
Exactly. So it's a very pragmatic sense of the word meaning. Okay, so my question is this. What does it say about the nature of ourselves or Bitcoin perhaps that this phenomenon that we call Bitcoin is basically just perfectly ordered information? Right? It's just, you can't argue, like I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's an inarguable set of data, perhaps, incontrovertible set of data. So clearly it has strong meaning.
For the first time in history.
For the first time in history, we've never had anything like it, right? An unalterable database.
Yeah.
So it's very strong in that third sense, like orderly information. Well, Bitcoin is the most orderly information we've ever had.
Yeah.
Yet it seems to be invoking this other sense of the word meaning, like giving people meaning. There's a lot of significance, like as we're describing, right? Bitcoin is, we're talking about love for God's sakes, and this is a monetary innovation. So like what does it say about the nature of Bitcoin or us that orderly information is creating this like significance or importance in things that aren't data or money related?
Yeah. So let's if you use the Dalai Lama or you use any religion or say at that level of enlightenment, did they need Bitcoin?
No.
So it was there. They were there all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Bitcoin didn't do it. Bitcoin, what it does through what you just said, is brings that level of enlightenment to way more of society.
Wow.
That's what that's ultimately what it does, because you have to so today the world would look, if you just went today the world would work average about 10 hours a week to have a superior lifestyle than they have today if you had a monetary standard that couldn't be manipulated. And instead, you have a monetary standard that's being manipulated, that some people are working harder and harder and harder, maybe 80 hours a week between their family, and getting harder and harder and harder to live in that. And some people aren't working at all, and they're kind of rent seeking on top of that, or telling other people what to do on top of that, top of that system. And if you advance technology, eventually we will be working 1 hour a week, half an hour a week. No hours a week for a superior
Quality of life.
Quality of life than we have. And as we do that, as we make this transition, for the people that really understand Bitcoin, that already exists. It's actually existing, and it's accelerating. And how that is, it's not Bitcoin price going up, it's all prices falling against Bitcoin.
Yeah.
In other words, their time being more important.
Yes.
So their time to be able to explore these things you're exploring,
Right.
because you've had the time
Yes.
to be able to explore them at a deeper fundamental basis, based on truth.
Right.
And that's how it'll bring the consciousness of the world up.
Wow. By giving us more freedom.
By giving us more freedom.
Wow. That is beautiful. That ties so perfectly back into how the author of Flow defines flow. It's like doing a thing for its own sake.
So that's how I do. I remember that when you just were talking about flow, I remember reading it, and I read it after. I used to do triathlons competitively, and would get to that flow state, whether it was running or swimming or biking, and I could remember that flow state. Now that flow state is a pretty, it's quite often, whether it's meditation
Really?
or it's, but many times during the day, it feels like I can just turn that flow.
That you get into flow, really?
Like all the time.
Wow.
It just feels like that actually is what it feels. That's what it feels like my life is like.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And actually that's coming to everybody.
Yes.
That's coming to everybody.
I love how you said that it's always been available to us, as was the case with the Dalai Lama or the Buddha, anyone that achieved enlightenment, but somehow we've created a networked tool that's actually instilling that in people.
Yeah, and the existing one takes it away from it because it wants you to reach in. So what you would say with all of those people is they stepped out of that system and they didn't give it power.
Right.
This is a system that brings that ability to everyone on the planet.
I think that is a beautiful place to call it
Awesome.
Call it a show.
Awesome.
Jeff Booth, I love you, man. This
You
has
too,
been an awesome conversation. Where can people find you on the internet?
Now on Nostr probably is the best. So to find my public key there, it's on Twitter. And if because I'm less on Twitter these days, I'm more on Nostr, or jeffbooth.ca is my website.
Beautiful. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.